The business class cabin glowed warmly with soft lighting, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air as the aircraft taxied toward the runway. A single father in a worn work shirt struggled awkwardly to fasten his young daughter's seatbelt, his clumsy movements drawing annoyed glances from nearby passengers from across the aisle. An elegantly dressed female CEO laughed mockingly. "Flying business class but can't even manage a simple seatbelt. How embarrassing for everyone." Her assistants giggled in agreement while the little girl's face turned red with shame, burying herself against her father's shoulder. Suddenly, the cockpit intercom crackled to life, the captain's voice trembling slightly. "Any fighter pilots aboard? We need immediate assistance up here." The father looked up slowly, and nobody knew that this moment would change the entire flight and their lives forever. Meet Ethan Cole, 39 years old, single father with a tall, lean but sturdy frame, dark brown hair, eyes shadowed with exhaustion but radiating warmth, currently working as a mechanical maintenance technician at a small aircraft service facility, earning modest wages to support his family. His daughter Lily, 8 years old, fascinated by airplanes, always carrying her sketchbook and markers, with a nervous habit of folding paper airplanes whenever feeling anxious. The setting was International Flight EA-217 from Singapore to San Francisco, a fully booked Boeing 777 with many business travelers and executives. The reason for their journey was visiting Lily's grandmother after her recent surgery, with Ethan using old travel vouchers to upgrade their seats so his daughter would be more comfortable. The antagonist was Victoria Hale, 34 years old, founder of a technology investment fund, appearing in an expensive white suit with a platinum watch. Accompanied by 3 assistants, Ethan's initial mindset focused entirely on helping Lily overcome her flight anxiety by demonstrating wing movements using folded paper airplane models. Victoria found herself irritated by the sound of crayons scratching paper and rustling origami, making sarcastic comments about proper business class etiquette. The meaningful moment arrived when Lily wrote in the margin of her drawing, "Daddy is my pilot. Nobody else needs to believe it." Ethan saw the message and smiled sadly, recognizing his daughter's unwavering faith despite the cruel judgment surrounding them. As the aircraft began its takeoff roll, the flight attendants announced slightly turbulent weather conditions ahead, causing the Boeing 777 to accelerate with subtle vibrations. Once reaching cruising altitude, Victoria ordered wine and continued her mockery. "Business class isn't a daycare center. Some people clearly don't belong here." Ethan simply apologized quietly, comforting his daughter without engaging in confrontation, demonstrating remarkable patience under social pressure. The first hint of trouble came when the cockpit intercom activated unexpectedly. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some unusual sensor readings. Please remain calm while we assess the situation." Passengers began murmuring nervously throughout the cabin, but Victoria shrugged dismissively. "Even having a real pilot wouldn't matter. This is commercial aviation, not military operations." Her comment revealed her complete ignorance about aviation complexity and the skills required for different types of flying. Lily gripped her father's hand tightly, beginning to count 1, 2, 3 under her breath, a calming technique they had practiced together. Ethan spoke softly to reassure her. "Every airplane has detailed checklists, sweetheart. Following each step carefully makes fear smaller and more manageable." The lead flight attendant walked through checking passengers, noting that an avionics bay door had been opened for maintenance before departure and was showing unusual sensor warnings. The captain was evaluating whether to divert to an alternate airport while assessing the technical situation with limited information. Victoria shook her head in disgust. "Flight crews today are so weak, they should just use artificial intelligence for everything instead." Her assistants laughed on cue, completely oblivious to the complexity of the situation developing in the cockpit above. Meanwhile, a young flight attendant noticed how Ethan calmed his daughter using proper aviation terminology like pitch, roll, checklist, Language far more sophisticated than typical passengers, she whispered curiously. Have you flown before, sir? But Ethan smiled and deflected the question without providing details. Lily continued folding paper airplanes, writing encouraging messages on the wings. You can, then slipping them into her father's hands like protective talismans. The turbulence increased slightly, causing several passengers to grip their armrests nervously, while Victoria complained about her wine glass being disturbed. A touching human moment occurred when an elderly passenger dropped his medication with shaking hands, and Ethan immediately helped retrieve the pills and showed him breathing techniques. The captain's voice returned over the intercom, this time with greater urgency. Any fighter pilots aboard this aircraft? We could really use your help immediately. The entire cabin fell silent, with every passenger frozen in their seats, uncertain what kind of emergency would require military pilot expertise. The aircraft encountered moderate turbulence as the seatbelt signs illuminated once again, causing Lily to grip her father's hand while quietly counting to calm her nerves. Ethan spoke gently to his daughter. Remember, sweetheart, every airplane has detailed emergency procedures. Following each step makes scary situations much more manageable. The lead flight attendant hurried through the cabin checking on passengers, explaining that an avionics equipment bay door had been opened for maintenance before departure. The sensors in that compartment were now showing inconsistent readings, and the captain was evaluating whether to divert to an alternate airport for safety. Victoria shook her head dismissively. Modern flight crews are too dependent on technology. They should rely more on artificial intelligence systems. Her assistants nodded in agreement. Completely unaware of the complex human decision-making required in aviation emergency situations, a quiet connection began forming when a young flight attendant noticed Ethan's use of precise aviation terminology while comforting his daughter. She approached discreetly and whispered, "Excuse me, sir, do you have flying experience?" But Ethan smiled and avoided giving a direct answer. Lily continued her paper airplane project, carefully writing encouraging messages on each wing. You can, then placing them in her father's hands like magical charms. The turbulence intensified, causing several nervous passengers to grip their armrests, while Victoria complained loudly about her disturbed wine service. A touching moment occurred when an elderly gentleman's hands shook so badly he dropped his heart medication across the aisle. Ethan immediately unbuckled to help retrieve the scattered pills, then taught the man a calming breathing technique. Breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 7, exhale for 8. The captain's voice returned over the intercom with increased urgency. Ladies and gentlemen, any fighter pilots aboard? We need immediate assistance in the cockpit. The specific reason became clear. The aircraft needed expert knowledge of told calculations, takeoff and landing performance, for emergency decision-making. Additionally, sensor discrepancies in the angle of attack indicators could provide misleading information during critical flight phases. The experience and quick decision-making abilities of military pilots would be invaluable for energy management in this challenging situation. Furthermore, the first officer was experiencing mild food poisoning, leaving the captain needing a qualified second opinion for emergency procedures. The entire cabin remained frozen in stunned silence. With no passengers volunteering to respond to the unprecedented request, flight attendants looked around hopefully while Victoria smirked. Nobody should pretend to be a hero. This isn't some action movie. Ethan took a deep breath, stood up slowly, and spoke clearly. I used to be a fighter pilot. I can help if needed. Several passengers burst into skeptical laughter, treating his offer as either a joke or dangerous delusion. The flight attendants immediately escorted him to the galley area for verification of his credentials before allowing cockpit access verification process. Ethan produced his faded military identification card. Captain Ethan Cole, United States Air Force, F-16 and F-15 qualified pilot. The lead flight attendant breathed a sigh of relief and immediately contacted the cockpit through the interphone system. Before leaving for the cockpit, Ethan knelt down to embrace Lily. Daddy is just going to help with some technical discussions. Not actually flying the airplane. He continued reassuringly. Keep my paper airplanes safe while I'm gone. They're very important to me, just like you are. Lily nodded solemnly, pressing the folded paper against her chest like a badge of honor, whispering, Daddy has his checklist, and I have mine too. Her response demonstrated the deep trust and understanding that had developed between father and daughter through years of shared experiences. The cockpit door opened, revealing the complex technical challenge that required both aviation expertise and calm decision-making under pressure. Captain Sato was perspiring heavily, while the first officer looked pale and nauseous, clearly struggling with his illness. Multiple warning lights illuminated the instrument panel, indicating sensor disagreements between the left and right angle of attack systems. Ethan knocked gently on the center console, asking permission to observe according to standard crew resource management protocols. I won't touch any controls, Captain. Just provide additional perspective and callouts if helpful, he offered respectfully. The two pilots quickly consulted their quick reference handbook, while Ethan suggested treating the situation as unreliable airspeed and angle of attack disagreement. His recommendation was to fly by attitude and power settings rather than chasing potentially erroneous instrument readings. Captain Sato's breathing steadied as he acknowledged, Thank you for the assistance, Captain Cole. Your experience is exactly what we needed. The technical challenge involved deciding whether to divert back to Singapore's Changi Airport or continue to an alternate destination in the Philippines or Taiwan. Weather conditions ahead were deteriorating, and fuel calculations needed to account for potential holding patterns or multiple approach attempts. Ethan's military training in energy management proved valuable. Avoid chasing instrument readings. Maintain consistent pitch and power, according to established procedures. He also recommended contacting dispatch for updated wind information at various altitudes to optimize fuel consumption and avoid severe weather cells. Meanwhile, in the passenger cabin, Victoria watched Ethan disappear into the cockpit and laughed cynically. This is just cheap publicity-seeking behavior. Lily carefully arranged her paper airplanes on the tray table, whispering confidently, Daddy can do it. He knows how to help. The contrast between Victoria's skepticism and Lily's unwavering faith highlighted the different ways people respond to crisis situations. Inside the cockpit, the technical situation demanded immediate attention as Captain Sato wiped perspiration from his forehead, while the first officer struggled with nausea. Multiple warning lights indicated angle of attack sensor disagreements between left and right systems, creating potentially dangerous instrument reading discrepancies. Ethan positioned himself carefully behind the center console, respectfully following crew resource management protocols by not touching any flight controls. He asked permission to provide callouts and suggestions. Captain, I recommend treating this as unreliable airspeed and angle of attack disagreement according to standard procedures. The two pilots consulted their quick reference handbook, while Ethan suggested flying by attitude and power settings rather than chasing potentially erroneous readings. Maintain consistent pitch and power according to the tables. Don't chase individual instrument readings that might be providing false information, he advised calmly. Captain Sato's breathing steadied as the collaborative approach reduced stress. Thank you, Captain Cole. Having experienced backup perspective is exactly what we needed right now. The critical decision involved choosing between diverting back to Singapore's well-equipped Changi Airport or continuing to alternate destinations in the Philippines or Taiwan. Weather conditions ahead were deteriorating rapidly, with thunderstorm cells developing, and fuel calculations needed to account for potential delays and multiple approaches. Ethan's military experience in energy management proved invaluable. Recommend requesting higher altitude winds from dispatch to optimize fuel consumption and avoid weather. He also suggested coordinating with air traffic control for priority handling and medical assistance on arrival for the sick first officer. Meanwhile, in the passenger cabin, Victoria observed Ethan's entry into the cockpit and stood up to challenge the flight attendants directly. I demand an explanation for why you're allowing random passengers into the cockpit during an emergency. This violates every safety protocol. The lead flight attendant responded firmly, "Sir, he's a verified former military pilot who's been properly authenticated. He's providing consultation only according to CRM procedures." A retired airline captain seated nearby nodded approvingly. What they're doing is absolutely correct under these circumstances. This is textbook crisis management. Victoria's face flushed with embarrassment, but she persisted. This is still highly irregular and potentially dangerous for everyone aboard this aircraft. Back in the cockpit, a sudden clear air turbulence event jolted the aircraft violently, causing Captain Sato to instinctively chase the prettier angle of attack. Reading Ethan called out firmly, "Attitude hold, power set. Don't chase the instruments, trust your fundamental flying skills, and establish procedures." At that crucial moment, the flight path stabilized and the warning signals quieted, demonstrating the value of experienced decision-making under pressure. Ethan recommended turning back to Singapore because of superior maintenance facilities and medical care for the first officer's condition. Captain Sato agreed and declared a pan-pan emergency, requesting priority handling for the return to Changi Airport, with medical standing by the human element emerged when Ethan requested permission to briefly address the passenger cabin over the intercom system. Using simple, non-technical language, he explained, "Aircraft have multiple sensors like having several ears. When one ear gets blocked, pilots use experience and heart to maintain balance." His calm explanation and authoritative tone helped reduce passenger anxiety throughout the cabin, demonstrating leadership under pressure. Victoria's final confrontation came when she demanded the flight attendants explain why they were allowing civilians into the cockpit during emergencies. The lead flight attendant responded with authority. "He's a verified former military pilot following proper CRM protocols, providing consultation only, not flying the aircraft." A passenger who is a retired commercial pilot supported the crew's decision. "Their procedures are absolutely correct. This is exactly how professional crews handle these situations." Victoria found herself isolated in her criticism as other passengers recognized the professionalism and competence being demonstrated. The approach and landing phase required manual flying due to the sensor disagreements. With rain-making visibility challenging on runway 20C, Captain Sato executed the landing with Ethan providing altitude and airspeed callouts based on standard reference tables, rather than potentially erroneous instruments. The aircraft touched down smoothly, prompting spontaneous applause from relieved passengers throughout the cabin. When the cockpit door opened, Captain Sato shook hands warmly with Ethan. "If you hadn't reminded me not to chase the instruments, I might have exceeded safe parameters." Ethan responded graciously, "Thank you for trusting the checklists and procedures, Captain. That's what made the difference." The quiet moment of reunion came when Lily ran to embrace her father, and Ethan knelt to touch foreheads with his daughter. She pressed the paper airplane against his chest, the wing bearing her message, "You can, we can," showing her faith had never wavered. The transformation moment arrived when Victoria approached hesitantly, her previous arrogance replaced by genuine remorse. "I was completely wrong about you," Ethan responded without anger or vindictiveness. "Whether on an airplane or on the ground, we shouldn't judge people based on their appearance or circumstances." The identity revelation spread quietly through whispered conversations as a maintenance engineer recognized the name Cole from old achievement boards. He's the ace pilot who flew F-16s, won the red flag competition years ago. The information rippled through the cabin. Passengers began understanding they had witnessed something extraordinary, a hidden hero who had emerged exactly when needed. Most Victoria's worldview had been fundamentally challenged, forcing her to reconsider her assumptions about worth, value, and human dignity. The incident exposed the difference between surface-level success and genuine competence, between inherited privilege and earned expertise. Ethan's calm professionalism under pressure had saved not just the flight, but also provided a powerful lesson about judging others. The paper airplane messages took on deeper meaning, simple symbols of faith, hope, and the unbreakable bond between father and daughter. Captain Sato's gratitude was genuine and professional, acknowledging how civilian expertise had enhanced their emergency response. The contrast between Victoria's initial mockery and her final apology illustrated how crisis situations revealed true character. Lily's unwavering confidence in her father had been vindicated in the most dramatic and public way possible. The technical aspects of the emergency demonstrated how human experience and judgment remain crucial even in highly automated systems. Ethan's reluctance to seek recognition showed authentic heroism, helping because it was right, not for personal gain or attention. The incident would be remembered by every passenger as a lesson about hidden potential and the danger of superficial judgments. The airline efficiently arranged for passengers to transfer to a replacement aircraft while providing comfortable waiting areas at the gate. A small community formed around Ethan and Lily as they sat in the children's area. With other passengers drawn to their story, Ethan patiently taught Lily and several other curious children how to fold attitude-holding paper airplanes with thick wings, blunt noses, and optimal 15-degree throwing angles. A ground crew mechanic approached shyly, requesting an autograph on his daughter's paper airplane. "I want to tell my daughter about meeting a real hero today." Victoria's transformation began with a public apology delivered directly to Lily. "I said unkind things earlier. I was wrong, and I sincerely apologize to both you and your father." Lily responded with characteristic 8-year-old wisdom. "It's okay. I think you had blocked ears like the sensors. Sometimes people just need help hearing better." The surrounding passengers chuckled at her innocent but profound observation about human nature and the capacity for change. Ethan consistently declined all media interview requests, suggesting that any coverage should focus on crew resource management and the unnamed ground crews who keep aviation safe. Captain Sato ensured the airline sent an official letter of commendation, but Ethan requested they simply send Lily a junior aviator badge instead. The symbolic Sky Garden took shape when father and daughter created a string of paper airplanes along their apartment window. Ethan built a small display shelf where Lily could showcase her aviation-themed artwork and the growing collection of paper aircraft in their apartment complex courtyard. They drew chalk runways for neighborhood children to use during paper airplane competitions. Victoria quietly arranged for anonymous STEM education supplies to be delivered to the entire neighborhood, signing the package only from a passenger who learned to listen. The CEO's learning process continued as she invited Ethan to consult on human factors, safety for her new aviation investment fund. Her business philosophy evolved from invest in technology to invest in people and technology together. Recognizing that human expertise remained irreplaceable, Ethan declined full-time positions but agreed to occasional school presentations about checklists for fear management and the importance of teamwork. His teaching emphasized practical emotional regulation, breathe deeply, focus on fundamentals, trust your training, and rely on your team. The community impact expanded as parents recognized Ethan's unique combination of technical expertise and nurturing wisdom. Children began approaching him for help with science projects, drawn by his patient explanations and hands-on teaching methods. Lily's confidence soared as she watched her father receive recognition while maintaining his core values of humility and service. The Junior Aviator Badge became her most treasured possession, worn proudly to school and displayed prominently in their home. Victoria's transformation from arrogant executive to thoughtful leader became part of her personal growth story, shared in business schools as an example of emotional intelligence development. Local aviation museums invited Ethan to participate in educational programs, recognizing his ability to translate complex concepts into accessible language. His presentations always emphasized the collaborative nature of aviation safety, rather than individual heroism. The paper airplane tradition expanded to include engineering principles, with Lily learning about lift, drag, thrust, and weight through hands-on experimentation. Their weekend activities attracted other families, creating an informal science club focused on aviation and aerospace engineering. Ethan's approach combined technical accuracy with age-appropriate explanations, fostering genuine understanding rather than memorization. The maintenance facility where Ethan worked began receiving requests from aviation companies seeking employees with his combination of technical skills and crisis management experience. He carefully evaluated opportunities based on their alignment with his primary commitment to active, engaged Fatherhood. Victoria's Foundation grew to support aviation education programs nationwide, always emphasizing the human element in technological advancement. The original paper airplane with "You can, we can" became a symbol of faith overcoming doubt. Displayed in their home as a reminder of growth, Captain Sato maintained contact with Ethan, occasionally consulting on training scenarios that emphasize crew resource management principles. The airline industry began citing their successful collaboration as an example of how civilian expertise could enhance professional flight operations. Lily's artwork evolved to include detailed technical drawings that impressed aviation professionals with their accuracy and attention to detail. The classroom presentations Ethan delivered focused on overcoming fear through preparation, teamwork, and systematic problem-solving approaches. Students learned that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the ability to function effectively despite feeling afraid. The neighborhood children's paper airplane competitions became legendary, with elaborate courses designed to test different flying characteristics. Ethan's patient coaching helped children understand that failure was part of learning, and that improvement came through practice and persistence. Victoria's business success increased as she applied lessons about listening, humility, and recognizing potential in unexpected places. Her investment decisions improved because she learned to value human judgment alongside technological innovation. Call to action. If you believe that silent heroes can be ordinary fathers holding their children's hands, type "fly high" in the comments. On the day of Lily's school science fair, she stood confidently before her classmates presenting her project, flying safely with paper cockpit models. Her demonstration included a cardboard control panel with buttons labeled "Attitude, Power, Trim, Breathe." Teaching fundamental principles through interactive play, Ethan stood quietly in the back of the classroom, not speaking but holding up a sign reading "Checklist for Fear," with simple steps any child could follow. The list included: breathe slowly and deeply, look at what you know for certain, make small adjustments carefully, trust the people beside you. The entire class applauded enthusiastically, and the teacher invited the pilot dad to address the students with his wisdom. Ethan stepped forward and spoke from his heart. "I don't fly airplanes every day anymore, but I practice being a father every day, and that's the longest, most beautiful flight of all." His words resonated with parents and children alike, emphasizing that everyday heroism often matters more than dramatic gestures. That evening brought a moment of emotional resolution when Ethan opened an old wooden box containing his military pilot wings and a photograph of his deceased wife. He hung the wings beside Lily's paper airplane bearing the message, "You can, we can." No longer hiding his past but integrating it with his present, the daily happiness they shared involved simple rituals. Sitting on their apartment balcony in the gentle evening breeze, Lily asked thoughtfully, "Daddy, do you miss flying in the big sky every day like you used to?" Ethan smiled warmly, pulling his daughter closer. "I miss it sometimes, sweetheart, but I love our chalk runway adventures even more than flying jets." An unexpected response came when Victoria visited their neighborhood, dressed casually without her usual entourage of assistants. She brought a personally engraved junior aviator badge with Lily's name and a handwritten letter expressing her transformation. "That day, you taught me that listening is also a flying skill. Thank you for not chasing the instruments of my appearance," she wrote sincerely. Lily pinned on the badge and ran circles around the courtyard shouting, "Rotate!" like an aircraft taking off, her joy infectious and pure. The ending scene painted a picture of perfect contentment, camera panning from the string of paper airplanes inside their home to the golden sunset sky outside. Ethan lifted Lily in his arms, kissed her hair that smelled like sunshine and childhood, whispering, "My sky is right here with you, forever." Their story demonstrated that family bonds provide the foundation for all other achievements, that love creates the safest landing zone. The paper airplanes hanging in their window caught the last rays of sunlight, symbols of dreams that had already taken flight. Victoria's foundation continued expanding, but its core mission remained honoring the lesson that potential exists in unexpected places. The neighborhood children still gathered for paper airplane competitions, with Ethan teaching them that persistence and teamwork matter more than winning. Lily's confidence had grown beyond recognition. From a shy girl hiding behind her father to a young aviator teaching others about courage. The chalk runways they drew together became permanent features of the community, inspiring other families to create learning spaces. Ethan's decision to remain in their modest neighborhood rather than pursuing prestigious aviation careers proved that presence trumps prestige. Their evening routine of folding paper airplanes had evolved into a meditation on patience, precision, and the joy of creating something beautiful together. The Junior Aviator badge represented not just recognition, but belonging to a community that valued both technical skill and human character. Captain Sato occasionally sent updates about improvements in crew resource management training, inspired by their collaboration. The maintenance facility where Ethan worked became known for its exceptional safety culture and collaborative approach to problem-solving. Lily's artwork now decorated the walls of aviation museums, inspiring other children to explore science and engineering. The transformation was complete, from a mocked father and daughter to respected community members whose story inspired others. Final message: never judge people by their tickets or their clothes. Whether in the sky or on the ground, discipline, courage, and love always provide safe landings. Subscribe to our channel for more stories celebrating everyday heroes and the courage to see potential in everyone we meet.